Welcome to my channel. I am Amy from thefuelhomestead.com. Today we're going to talk about homeschooling, getting ready for homeschool. And I have a munchkin with me today. So I do every day, right? But just not in the videos. And so he's going to help me out. Maybe take a nap in between. I don't know. But homeschool is about to start actually next week at the making of this video. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about our curriculum and a few more things that can help you. Let's get started. Alright, so we are starting homeschool on August 10th. And that means, so we are one of those families that takes a break in the summertime. And we have to, because especially with boys are very adventurous and basic in the summertime. And so I don't think we're going to be able to do this with you, are we? And so we take a couple of months off. So that also gives me a couple of months to plan accordingly, kind of figure out what kind of curriculum we're going to be doing. And what are you doing? It's you, Goofy. And so that just gives us time to kind of sort through everything. So today I want to show you what curriculum we're using this year, give you some tips and tricks on homeschooling, and I will direct you once again to my homeschooling podcast episode that I did on the Choosing Simple podcast. And that way there's a lot more information in there and kind of our personal journey on homeschooling. Nobody's going to be able to pay attention to what I'm saying because you are being crazy. I think I'm going to have to get rid of you. So we have a few different things that we're doing this year, like any other year. And no. And so I'm going to talk through them. I'm going to talk through which curriculums that we're using. And we're doing a lot of reading this year too. So I'm kind of going to go over some books that we can use this year for more of like a unit study than anything else. Alright, so in this video we are going to talk about briefly what we're doing this year, what curriculum we're using, and just kind of giving you a few tips on curriculum that I think is really important. If you want the more extensive how to get started with homeschooling chat and more about our journey, you can check out the podcast that I'm going to link below. But let's get started. Okay, so first and foremost, let's go through the curriculum. You're going to notice that I use a lot of different curriculums in one year, and I feel like this happens every year. Every year I use a different curriculum, but I always come back on certain subjects to this one curriculum. We like to do the ACE, it's called Accelerated Christian Education. We are a Christian home, so we do use some religious curriculum, but how many times can I say So what I like about these though is it's independent driven. I did this in high school when I switched over to a private school, and my husband did this throughout elementary, middle school, and high school. And so it's very independently driven in that it gives you a set of goals for each pace. It gives you a Bible scripture and it tells you what you're going to learn, and it has little comic strips in it which kids really love. And then it goes through and it requires you to do different things. You have to read the instructions. They have little checkups after each lesson, which is kind of like a mini test, and you're in charge of that. And then it's just a very independent driven curriculum that we enjoy, and it has different things in it that your kids will enjoy. At the end of each curriculum, or at the end of each pace, these are called paces. I believe there's 12 paces for each subject. So like this is all of English for the whole year. And as you can see, it's not very overwhelming. In fact, we sat down and discovered that if we were to do 5 pages a day in each of our paces, we would be done with that's a 5-day school week. We'd be done by January, if not sooner, more like November, December. if we were to sit down and do it every day. But see, that's how the flexibility of homeschool is amazing. So we do this for English, and we do this for, they have a pace called word building. I'm not sure if you can see that or not. There you go. Word building is for spelling and learning how to spell. It's a lot of writing because we learn how to spell best by writing. And then in the test, it'll have a spelling test for your test, which teaches you how, obviously how to spell. And then it's very straightforward. They read the instructions at the top there, and they do what the instructions tell them to do. And then either they can score it themselves depending on what grade you're doing. You can order these score keys, which have all of the answers. In middle school and high school, they can score their paces themselves and then go back and change the answers. Obviously, you need to be there while they're scoring. And it helps them be independent and kind of learn a little bit more on their own when they can see what the answer was, so that they can learn that way. Or if they're in elementary school, you can score it for them. Or if they're an untrustworthy child, you can score it for them. But we love this system, so we use it for English, word building, and we're doing social studies this year. We did not do social studies last year. And social studies is a lot of reading. And actually in middle school social studies, it does kind of have history in it for social studies, but it also has a lot of Bible reading in it. So you'll see they're required to go through and read the Bible and then answer questions. So it goes through the history of the beginning of time through regular nowadays history as they get through more and more of the high school curriculum now. So we do those 3 subjects for English, word building, and social studies. But on top of the social studies, we are working our way through the master books, America's Story. And it comes with a workbook and it comes with a teacher's manual. And so we're combining these two. It is a 36-week course. We started it last year. We did not finish it because we needed to concentrate more on math and English. And that's a nice flexibility about homeschool too, is you can focus on what you need to focus on, and then the rest can come at a later time. To supplement history, we are doing some book reading. Let me grab these here. This is not nearly an exhaustive list of the books that we're going to be reading, but these are just some of them to give you an idea. I am a big advocate for reading vintage history books. I have a lot of vintage Landmark. They're called Landmark books. That's who publishes them. But I don't have all of the vintage ones. So we went through and got some Landmark books this year. This one is called Meet George Washington. It's just a very small, quick read. But he's going to be required to write a book report on each book that he reads, just a 1-page book report. This one is Meet Abraham Lincoln, and this one is by Landmark Books as well. This one is a little bit thicker, more like a chapter book, but has big words, size words. This is about the American Revolution. Again, this is supplementing our history curriculum this year. And then here is one called Liberty, how the Revolutionary War began. And this one's a little bit more interactive with pictures, which I thought was interesting. Then we have a book. I picked this book up from a thrift store a while back, I think. And this is from Scholastic, and it's called Children of the Wild West. And it says, what did children of pioneer families experience as they traveled west in a wagon train? What were their lives like as their families settled on the frontier? What about the Indian boys and girls of the day? How did their lives change with the coming of pioneers? And it has fascinating and haunting photographs document the story. Here's an unforgettable visit with American young people of the 19th century American West. And so it kind of tells the story of pioneers and, kind of the displacing and interaction with Indians during that time. And so, learning history is really big to us. And I think it's important that we go through books that kind of talk about the hard stuff, but the good stuff too. And then the other book that I have currently for history is this is the Golden Book of the Civil War. Now, this book it's interactive as well. It has pictures, and it's more so the history type book. But I don't know if you can even find this book really anymore. I got this in a book haul from an estate that was getting rid of a lot of books, and so that's how I got that book. So those are what we were supplementing with history. I did pick up a few books from a kids consignment sale. I got this book called Our Virginia. This is a school book, Our Virginia Past and Present. It's used in public school, and it has a lot of information in it, a lot of interesting things going on in that book. So I picked up that one, and I also picked up World War II, but we aren't really going to focus on that this year. I don't know if we'll actually get to this book or not, but I did pick that up just in case. We're more so trying to focus on the history of Virginia, the basis of it, you know, how Virginia and how our Constitution was created and how it began. And so those are just some of the books that we're going to be using this year. Another book that we're going to be using, it's called A Jesus Christmas, Explore God's Amazing Plan for Christmas. This is not history, obviously. But I got this book. It's made by the Good Book Company, and it goes through every single day. So you use this book every day during December. Did I get this through Master Books? I don't remember. But it's like a devotional, and it goes through every single day and kind of gives you something to do, how to, read some scripture. It explains it to you. It talks about Christmas, and it's just fun. It's a fun thing he can go through every day. Another thing that we're going to be doing book-wise, I'll get to math in a second, is A Boy's Guide to Making Really Good Choices, is what it's called. A Boy's Guide to Making Really Good Choices. And this is by Harvest House Publishers by Jim George, who is also the author, if you have boys, of A Boy After God's Own Heart. And this is just a daily devotional. Let me find a day here for you. Like this one is called You Have a Choice, this day, particular day. And it gives him, a story to read, and then it kind of breaks down scripture, choices you deal with your heart. It gives you questions. It kind of walks him through emotions, influences, choices that he has to make, and it's just a really good, it's a good devotion for him. So he's going to be required to sit down every morning and do a devotional, and then we do have a family devotional. This is a new one. It's called the Family Bible Devotional, Stories from the Bible to help kids and parents engage and love scripture, is what that's called. So we'll do this during the week, maybe not every day, but it's pouring down rain outside, but he will be doing this every day. And then in the December, he'll do this one every day as well. And so we're kind of setting it up where we have our daily, I'll go over our schedule in a second, but we have our daily schoolwork, then we have reading, we have our devotionals. I'm going to throw some kids podcasts in there as well, and that'll be good. For the A.C.E. paces, this is where I keep our tests. On one side it's tests he needs to do, on the other side it's tests he's already done. That's just a great way for me to keep up with testing during the year. Now we need to talk about math. So if you go through and you listen to my podcast, I give you more of a deep history on our experience as homeschoolers. And I have a very strong-willed boy, and so that has been interesting the last few years. And so math has been challenging. It's been challenging for him. It's been challenging for me, because I have just had a lot of questions like, am I doing this right? Is it me? Is it him? What is it? I don't think I need something. And so a lot of our homeschool days were spent arguing or crying, because it was just a very difficult time. So this year we've switched to teaching textbooks, and we actually started it this summer just to see if he would like it before I bought it, and he loved it. So it's a really interactive curriculum. There is somebody teaching him. It's a pre-recorded teaching, and so he isn't having to learn from mom, boring mom, right? But it also holds him accountable, because it has questions that he has to fill in on the computer, and he instantly knows whether it's right or wrong. And then he can go back and kind of see, oh, I messed up here. I need to go back and see how to correctly do it. And so the other nice thing is that he can do multiple lessons in one day because they're pretty short lessons. And so we are really enjoying the Teaching Textbooks website. It's like with any curriculum, it's good for some people, it doesn't work for other people. For him, he's very simple-minded when it comes to math, and so we needed this option, and so that's what we went with. I will link that below. It's very inexpensive. I don't get any payment from it. There's no affiliate link or anything. It's just what we're using, and I wanted to share it with you. All right, the final thing that I want to show you is handwriting. We are doing handwriting. This is from The Good and the Beautiful, and we are actually going to switch to their history curriculum too once it comes back in. But for now, this is actually level 4, which is a little bit below his grade level. He's going in 6th grade, but he hasn't really had any handwriting experience yet. And so this is level 4 handwriting, and it kind of just goes through and teaches you how to write. And so this is something he's going to whiz through, but it's something that I really feel like is important for him to learn is handwriting. And this was really cheap. I think it was like 13 bucks for this one workbook. But we will also be switching to their history curriculum. I was very impressed with it when I was reviewing it. And so that's something that we will be working towards as well. Again, once it comes in, it's on back order right now. And so that's not something I've been able to get to. So that is it. That's the basis of the curriculum that we're using. I do want to go over our daily schedule that I've written out so far. It might not be what we keep with as we start our year, but I think it's something that will work pretty well for us. So in the morning, so I just literally just wrote it down. So from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have Bible time, which is his devotional, any podcast that I want him to listen to, and breakfast. So we can do all of that while he's eating breakfast. He can read, he can listen to a podcast, and that's from 8 to 9. Now that from that point, it switches up each day. On Monday, we have math from 9:15 to 10:15. So we have this time block from 9:15 to 10:15. On Monday it's math, Tuesday it's English, Wednesday it's history, Thursday we're back to English, Friday we're back to math. From 10:30 to 11:30, Monday and Tuesday is word building, Wednesday is math, Thursday is word building, and Friday is reading. So that we do a lot of word building from 10:30 to 11:30 on most days. And then from 1 to 2, because there will be a lunch break in there, we have reading. And so that's pretty much it. So reading from 1 to 2 can be anything. It can be something he didn't catch up on with reading earlier in the week. It could be his devotional, maybe he didn't get to it that morning. Or it could be catch-up time. So if he has anything left over from that day between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, or even during his lunchtime, he can finish out whatever he has left to do. So it'll be social studies, because that falls under history as well. And you notice we only did history once a week. We will probably maneuver that to twice a week, depending on what the schedule looks like as we go throughout the day. But on math days, it's very short math. So a lot of times we can do history on that day and just make that our focus. So from 1 to 2, he has reading time and catch-up time, and that's it. That's as simple as our homeschool schedule is. And I think it's good to keep it simple and flexible because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. You don't want to overwhelm your kids. Now, granted, I only have one kid that I'm homeschooling this year. So if I had multiple kids, it could be very different. But I highly recommend you block out parts of the day to do homeschool and do it by subject. And if they don't finish that subject, they can finish it later during that 1 to 2 o'clock time. But then after that, we're done. And a lot of times he's done by lunchtime. As you have older kids, it'll get a little more extensive, but younger elementary school kids, only a couple hours a day is really all that's necessary for homeschool because they're not really going to retain a lot of that information. Now, if you have kids that are go-getters that are really into school, then you might have more extensive days, but I don't have one of those kids right now. And so our days are fairly short. He gets the information that he absolutely needs. We might do some extracurricular things. You might notice that there's not a science curriculum that we currently do, and that's because he gets real life science every day around here on, doing chickens, playing out in nature, learning about things in nature. He always has questions, and so that's an everyday interactive thing that we practice. He doesn't really need to learn about the extensiveness of science yet, because it's not something he's interested in. It's not something he has to test in, and we're not really that concerned about it. Now, we do have end of year testing that we do every year, even though we're not really required to. We still do it, and that's because I want to see where he's testing on a public school level, in case he ever does have to go to school, which I don't ever see that happening. But I also just like to know where the gaps are. If he has gaps in certain areas that I need to know about, then I can kind of change my curriculum next year to fill in gaps that maybe I'm not aware of. And it's just good to have testing in case, something ever happens and somebody wants to see his testing or whatnot. So we do that every year, and every year he tests pretty well. This past year was an exception because he was not very, attention was just not great this past year. But I have a feeling this year, with the way we've restructured everything, it's going to be a lot better. So, all right, one of my biggest tips, and I'm going to end here, one of my biggest tips to homeschoolers, especially those of you who are new, that are just bringing your kids out of public school or just getting started in homeschool, I cannot stress to you enough, do not make homeschool like public school. It will never, ever work. In a public school setting, kids have other peers, they have a teacher that is not their parent, they have scheduling because they're in a different place, they're not at home. At home, they have more distractions and things they can get into. When we start creating a homeschool system that mimics a public school system, it will not work. You will regret it and you will hate homeschooling. Be flexible. Set a schedule just like I did, where you're done by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, if not before. I always strive to be done with school by lunchtime, because that gives your kids things to do for the rest of the day. That gives you time to do stuff for the rest of the day, and it makes life a little bit more easy. Be flexible. Keep a schedule, but be flexible in everything that you do. If your child is sick, don't push it that day. If your child's attention is just not there, find another thing to do. Switch to a different subject, or just go on the day and take a field trip or go outside or whatever. If they are not paying attention, then they are not learning. And so your ultimate job as a parent is to discover how to capture their attention. And sometimes that means walking away. And I don't mean to do that every day. You have to be a little bit strict in your schedule, but I do mean it's okay if you only do school 4 days out of the week and you have 1 day a week that you're not doing school. Sometimes it's even okay to do it 2 or 3 times a week, not 5 days, just depending on what you're doing and how you're setting it up. Be flexible, be patient, and understand that your homeschool is going to change every single year. No matter how well you think you might know your child, it's going to change every year. I encourage you to explore other curriculums, explore your schedule. Don't be afraid to change curriculums even in the middle of the year. I've done that before. If it's not working for your child, find something else. And don't be afraid to explore your child's mind and what they want to learn about, because ultimately that is going to be the best thing for your child and what they're interested in and how they're interested in learning. I hope that this video helped you a lot. If you're new to homeschooling this year, I will be praying for you, because it is the most amazing and yet the most challenging thing of all. But it's also the one thing that I do in life that makes me feel empowered when it comes to parenting. And I encourage you to share with others, find other moms and dads in your area that you can kind of bounce ideas off of, or even get into homeschool co-op groups if that's something that interests you. And please let me know if you have any questions. I will try to answer them as much as possible. Until next time, have a great day and happy homeschooling.